Welcome to Ramya Teacher's Classroom. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. In this explainer, we're embarking on a truly fascinating journey. We're going to start by looking at the macro world of survival, how organisms actually stay alive. And then we're going to shrink ourselves all the way down to explore the microscopic chemical factories operating quietly inside every single green leaf on Earth. If you have ever wondered how life sustains itself day in and day out, you are in the perfect place. Today, we're solving the ultimate biological puzzle: how living things actually harvest energy to survive, to grow, and to thrive. It's a system so perfect, so intricate, that human engineering is quite literally still trying to replicate it. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to zoom in from basic life functions, look at how different organisms get their nutrients, step inside the photosynthesis factory, unpack the light and dark reactions, and then finally look at the essential requirements to make it all happen.
Starting right off with life processes and nutrition.
To really understand life, we first have to understand the fundamental rule of existence, which is maintenance. Whether an organism is sprinting across a savanna or simply resting in the sun, its body is constantly working to prevent damage or breakdown. And this maintenance, well, it requires energy. These basic maintenance functions are what we call life processes. Think of them as the four pillars of life: nutrition, respiration, transportation, and excretion. Every living thing has to perform these to stay alive. But here's the secret: none of those other three processes are even possible without our primary focus today. You simply cannot respire, transport, or excrete without first harvesting energy through nutrition. Formally speaking, nutrition is defined as the process of intake and utilization of nutrients. Sounds simple enough, right? But the nutrients themselves are incredibly diverse. They can be organic substances, meaning they contain carbon in their structure, kind of like the carbohydrates and proteins we get from plants and animals. Or they can be inorganic nutrients, which don't contain carbon, like water and minerals, like iron and zinc.
Let's move on to the modes of nutrition, or basically how different organisms actually eat.
So organisms live in vastly different environments, which begs the question, how do they all actually get this food? Nature doesn't really have a one-size-fits-all menu. And that creates a grand divide in the biological world: autotrophs versus heterotrophs. On the autotroph side, auto means self and troph means nourishment. Autotrophs synthesize their own food using super simple inorganic materials like CO2 and water. They're the primary producers of the world. And because their food comes right to them via the sun and the soil, they don't even need to move. Now contrast that with heterotrophs. Hetero means other. We depend on other organisms. We require nutrients that are already produced in organic form, which makes us consumers. And because our food doesn't just magically fall into our laps, we generally have to move around to go find it. Tracing these nutritional pathways, it's like a giant family tree. Autotrophs divide based on their energy source. You've got photoautotrophs that use solar energy, like your everyday green plants. And then you have chemoautotrophs that use chemical energy from oxidizing inorganic chemicals, like hydrogen sulfide. These are incredible, extreme bacteria often found in deep sea vents where sunlight literally never reaches. On the flip side, heterotrophs take three entirely unique paths: saprophytic, parasitic, and holozoic. Let's quickly break down those three heterotrophic lifestyles, because they are wild. Saprophytes, like mushrooms and fungi, do something completely fascinating. They secrete digestive enzymes outside their body, directly onto dead matter, break it down externally, and then just absorb the simple substances. Parasites, on the other hand, like a tapeworm or the cascota plant, live on or inside a host. They're basically stealing nutrients without killing the host immediately. Finally, holozoic nutrition is what we do. Humans, dogs, cattle, we ingest complex whole foods into our bodies, digest them internally, and then absorb all those good nutrients. All right, let's step into the photosynthesis factory. Now that we see exactly where we fit into the global food web, we are going to zoom in strictly on the autotrophs, specifically green plants. We rely on them entirely for our survival, so it's about time we step inside their molecular factory to see exactly how they make their own food. Stepping inside, a cross-section of a leaf reveals a highly organized factory floor. Right between the protective upper and lower epidermis is a tissue called the mesophyll. Notice those elongated palisade cells and the loosely arranged spongy cells just below them? Inside those mesophyll cells are tiny, green, disc-shaped organelles called chloroplasts. This is it. This is the exact site where the absolute magic of photosynthesis takes place. Let's actually break down the word itself. Photo means light,
and synthesis means put together. So plants are literally putting together food using light. And this equation, it is arguably the most important chemical reaction on planet Earth. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 12 molecules of water, powered by light energy that's trapped by chlorophyll, yields 1 molecule of glucose, which is the plant's food, plus water, and 6 molecules of oxygen. This one process feeds the biological world and purifies our entire atmosphere all at once. It's brilliant.
Let's see how this breaks down into the light and dark reactions. So photosynthesis doesn't just happen in one instantaneous magical flash. It actually occurs in 2 very distinct coordinated phases known as the light and dark reactions. To really grasp these phases, we have to look at the internal architecture of the chloroplast. It's a double membrane structure, and inside there are these stacks of flattened sacs called thylakoids. Collectively, we call them grana. This is where the light reactions happen because they contain the chlorophyll molecules. Surrounding the grana is a colorless fluid matrix called the stroma, and the stroma is where the dark reactions take place.
Okay, so the light-dependent phase, which is also called the Hill reaction, kicks off first in the grana. Step 1. Chlorophyll pigments in photosystems I and II absorb light energy and get super excited, releasing electrons. Step 2 is honestly breathtaking. It's called photolysis. The plant uses that light energy to physically split water molecules into protons, electrons, and oxygen. That exact moment right there is where the oxygen you are breathing right now comes from. Incredible, right? Finally, in step 3, the energy from those excited electrons is used to form high-energy chemical intermediates, ATP and NADPH.
Now we enter the dark reaction. But please, don't let the name fool you. It does not mean this only happens in the dark at night. It simply means this phase is light independent. It doesn't need direct solar energy anymore because it's going to use the biochemical batteries we just charged up, the ATP and NADPH, to drive the next sequence right there in the stroma.
This beautiful continuous loop is called the Calvin-Benson cycle, named after the scientists Melvin Calvin and Andy Benson who discovered it. First, a 5-carbon compound called RUBP acts almost like a catcher's mitt, pulling carbon dioxide straight out of the air. Next, the ATP and NADPH from the light reaction are used to push these molecules through a series of complex reactions, ultimately forming a 6-carbon glucose molecule. Finally, the plant regenerates the RUBP so the cycle can just keep on spinning. The plant then converts this glucose into starch to store as an internal energy reserve for later.
Bringing us to our final section, the essential requirements.
So a crucial question here is, how do we actually prove that plants need these specific ingredients? Biologists didn't just guess that sunlight, chlorophyll, CO2, and water were required. They proved it. And they did it through some incredibly elegant experiments that you can easily replicate in a classroom. Let's look at how we prove sunlight is necessary. First, you take a potted plant and put it in the dark for a few days to de-starch it, meaning it uses up all its stored food. Then you wrap a thin strip of black paper tightly around the center of a leaf and put the plant back out in bright sunlight. After a few days, you pluck that leaf, remove the chlorophyll by boiling it in ethanol, and add an iodine solution. Iodine turns blue-black in the presence of starch. The result? The parts exposed to the sun turn blue-black, but the part covered by the black strip remains completely brown. No sunlight means no photosynthesis, and therefore absolutely no starch. Next up, how do we prove chlorophyll is essential? For this one, we use a variegated leaf, like a money plant or croton, which naturally has green patches and non-green, yellow patches. We de-starch it, leave it in the sun, and then do the exact same iodine test again. The result this time? Only the previously green parts of the leaf show that deep blue-black color. The yellow portions, which lacked chlorophyll from the start, show zero presence of starch. It's a perfect visual proof that this green pigment is absolutely mandatory. Okay, what about carbon dioxide? This one is proven by Moll's half-leaf experiment. You take a de-starched leaf while it's still attached to the plant, and you insert half of it into a glass bottle. Inside this bottle is a piece of cotton soaked in potassium hydroxide, or KOH. Now, KOH is special because it basically acts like a sponge and absorbs all the carbon dioxide in the air inside that bottle. You leave the whole setup in the sun, then test the leaf with iodine. The tip of the leaf inside the bottle, which had absolutely no CO2, doesn't turn blue-black. But the base half, left outside in normal air, does, proving definitively that CO2 is a must-have ingredient. Finally, we have to understand the true role of water. It's not just a liquid to keep the plant hydrated and upright. Water is absorbed by the roots and transported upwards through the xylem vessels straight into those microscopic mesophyll cells we looked at earlier. It is the essential raw material for photolysis. Without water, there are no electrons to drive the whole system, no protons to build ATP, and most importantly for us, no molecular oxygen released through the stomata into the atmosphere. Water literally gives us the breath of life.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, leaving us with a really profound question. How could mastering these ancient cellular factories help us solve the modern energy and climate crises of tomorrow? I mean, think about it. If we can fully understand and perhaps even replicate the way plants pull carbon out of the air and turn sunlight and water into clean, storable energy, we might just secure the future of our own species. Thank you so much for joining Ramya Teacher's Classroom today. Keep analyzing the natural world around you and never stop learning.